What's good, everybody? Hope you are having a wonderful week so far. Before we start this podcast, if you are listening and you haven't subscribed or you haven't given us a review or you're new to this, then welcome, but please subscribe. It keeps the podcast going. It means that we can get bigger guests on the more people subscribe. So I do really appreciate it if you do subscribe or follow or whatever you're listening on. If you also want to get involved in more of the community aspect of it, on Instagram, it's at the Will Clarke Podcast. Post a lot of clips from older podcasts and newer podcasts coming up. So get involved. Anyway, I will stop rambling on. This week on the podcast, the one and only Nic Fanciulli. Nic has had a very successful career in music and a very long career in music. His record label, Saved, is coming up to 20 years. He's been touring the world at a very high level for probably 25 years, longer, maybe longer than that. I have been a huge fan of Nic's music forever. I'm a huge fan of his DJ sets, and I'm a huge fan of him as a human being. He's one of the nicest guys I've met in the industry, and everybody that I speak to says how nice he is. Which is always an amazing kind of thing to have. So I wanted to get him on the podcast. We've been meaning to do this for a while. I see him quite a lot in the studios in London, and we always have like a nice little chat. And yeah, the conversations are always great. So I wanted to get him on the podcast, and again, the conversation was amazing. So without further ado, Nic Fanciulli. Nic Fanciulli, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good.
Thanks for coming on.
No, it's been a while. We've been talking about it for a while, and yeah, buzzing to catch up, mate. We obviously always cross paths in the studio and stuff every now and then, but we've never actually sat down and had a chat.
No, I'm looking forward to it. I've been a fan for a very, very long time, and I don't do much research on these. I generally just kind of keep these like open-winded. But I chat GPT'd Nic Fanciulli's first release. And it came up with the modulators.
Wow.
2000.
That was crazy. So
tell me about this.
Story behind that. There was a label called Moody Records out of Chicago. And I was really into that West Coast sound at the time, you know, like Jodski Onions, Halo Varga and things like that. And this record just went under the radar. And this was when I was working at Plastic Surgery Records in Maidstone. And I got sent a white label of it, and it just didn't do anything. Like, we weren't selling units, and I was like, right, I need to sign this record and put it out. And what we did is we took the original. The original was written by a great guy called Justin Nichols, and we took it and we wrote a vocal for it. And it was a singer-songwriter by the name of Camilla. I did this with my label partner, Owen Ingram, who used to work at Toolroom, actually. And we put the vocal over it. And I think Pete Tong played it like 16 weeks in a row. It was something insane. It was borderline same statistics as like Bryan Adams and Wet Records. You know what I mean? It was out of control. And I was only like 21, I think.
Wow.
I didn't know what to do with it. And then I was getting called up to go to Multiply office at the time, which was a big label back in the day. And they wanted to sign it for X amount of money. And then Pete Tong wanted to sign it. And Pete Tong actually got me to go to Miami Music Conference, where I had no idea what I was doing there. In fact, I turned up to Miami and I turned up to the conference center thinking it was at the conference center. And it was. Yes. And the rest is history. Pete put an offer in for it. Multiply put an offer in for it. Multiply had the bigger offer. And I should have gone with Pete because the record absolutely tanked after that. It didn't, you know what it's like.
Was Pete at was it his FFRR then?
FFRR at the time. And instead I went to Multiply, which was quite a successful label at the time.
Yeah.
But it was obviously down to the artist, what they wanted. They wanted the finances and the stability, which I totally understand. But, you know, it went from being like one of the hottest records at the time to just disappearing overnight. It was crazy.
Well, back then also, like, the power of what Pete had on radio was in our industry. It more so like if you had an essential new tune in the early 2000s, just one essential new tune. Like that's one spin. Like everybody's talking about you at the time. Like you pretty much had a career built out of you from having an essential new tune.
No, you're totally right. You're totally right. And it made me think, because I was so young at the time, I didn't know, you're thinking, right, they're going to put more money into the record, and it's not the case. And that's where you learn over time that, you make decisions like that. And that was a learning curve for me, and also to artists that I signed going, okay, the advance is great and I understand where we're at, but the record's going to have more longevity if we go here, and the rewards in the end. So
how much money were we talking?
I think we were, and this was, what did you say, 2000, 2001, was it around?
Yeah, 2000.
It was £150,000.
It's a good chunk of change.
Yeah, and for the artists as well, and
what was Pete offering?
I think it was like 30.
Stingy fucker.
It was so bad, because obviously me and Pete we're both young boys. He literally gave me my leg up in my career. I previously had Essential New Tunes with him, and I was just like, my heart wanted to go with it and sign it to FFRR. But the problem is, it wasn't just my decision. There was some other people in the mix, and it gave the stability to the label, to the employees and stuff like that. And it just, in hindsight, but end of the day, it was a learning curve, and I've never made that mistake since, really, in terms of, smashing.
I think it's quite to learn that early on in your career is quite interesting, right? Because I think what generally happens, especially in our scene, is you build an underground following, you build foundations, and then you have a bigger record, and then all the major labels want in on you because you've built your foundation, and they kind of want to buy into that. Then you go for the biggest bidder, and then you realize, oh shit, they actually don't do what they say they're going to do. But like learning that early on in your career is absolute game changer, because you can build again out of that. But I think a lot of artists, like Chris Lake talks about it quite a lot when he did his 360 deal. It locked him in for years, and just obviously he's doing absolutely fine now, but like there was a big span of his career where he was just completely locked out of anything.
It's funny because, we all get into this industry as a hobby. It's a hobby, isn't it? It's not a job. You get into what I did. I certainly did. Making music was a hobby. Playing music at parties was a hobby at the time, in sort of the late 90s and early 2000s. And then it becomes a career. Yeah. Then you leave your job, and then this is what you've got. So when you're thrown stuff like you're saying that Chris had like a 360 deal at him, and he's like, well, this is gonna financially support me and my career. So what do I do? It's like it's double-edged sword, isn't it? Like you don't know where to go with it, and you only learn the things like that through time and through age and through experience. I was very fortunate. I was touring at like 19, 20 years old, so I got to learn off people like Deep Dish, who were the first people to kind of pick me up and take me on the road. And I was just like, wow, these guys are so switched on. I need to learn, and I literally learned from them too. And everything I did from top to bottom, when it came to business, when it came to playing music, preparation, how you were to promoters, being polite, because it's an ecosystem and everyone's going to win,
How did that come about?
It's a funny story, actually. So I signed to Seb Fontaine's type agency.
Wow.
And his wife was running it at the time, Vanessa Fontaine. And Seb, back in the day, I don't know if many of the younger generation know it, huge DJ, huge, like in the top 10. And I was like, wow. And I got to the agency and I signed, and I was doing really well. I was playing with like people like King Unique, Medicine 8, Darren Emerson, they're all on the agency. And she goes, oh, you need a US agent. I was like, really? Okay. So I just done an edit of Deep Dish The Dream under Skylark.
Yeah. And
I sent it to Ali and Sharam, and they literally rang me up and they were like, can we release this? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, brilliant. He was like, what are you doing? Where are you? And I'm like, at the moment I'm on a UK agency called Type. He's like, we've just started an agency called Bullet in the US. And it's just going to be Deep Dish, Danny Howes and Beirut. Would you like to join it? And I was like, yeah, Christ, I'd love to join it, Where most of the UK DJs weren't playing in America at the time. They were very much doing that circuit of 3 shows a night, Stoke, London, Newcastle. And he goes, yeah, but there's only one stipulation. We have to sign you for the world. And I was like, fuck.
It's such an alley thing.
I had to do it. I rang Vanessa up and I was like, this is kind of on you at the same time as it is on me, but I have to do this. And it was fine. You know,
Yeah.
it was a bit of a, we'd only been working together sort of 6 months, and, you know, I found my place, you know, I found my feet in the right place. I was working with like Yoshitoshi and Deep Dish for me, Global Underground and stuff like that. They were like my icons. So it worked out at the start.
Well, also back then, Deep Dish were just doing absolute insane things in the industry. What they were releasing is
crazy. We would turn up
collaborations.
Dublin on a Tuesday night playing the Red Box, and there'd be like 4,000 people there.
Wow,
it was insane. Like Cavo Paradiso in Mykonos, I used to play like 4 till 7, and they used to play 7 till 7 p.m. And I was like, what? And someone posted a video the other day, and it was like, wow, what happened to this? Like Cavo, I think, shuts at 6 a.m. now.
Yeah,
on the dot.
It's all changed. It's all changed.
I know.
And it's really easy to like harp on about how the good old days were the good old days. But I kind of want to go back to what you were talking about with you starting out as a hobby, and it was never intended to be a job. Do you really think that is still the case nowadays?
There's too much information now. There's too much information, and you know that. I know that. My kids know that. Like when I was 7 years old, I didn't know what a DJ was. You know, you've got kids' cartoons on the TV that I'm watching. They've got a DJ on there. You know, they've got it's. I've never been one of them ones to say the good old days anymore, because I like to keep moving forward. I don't like to be stuck in the past. Like, especially like when space changed to high, everyone was like, "Oh, this is terrible," you know, blah blah blah. But I'm like, no, it's not, because the new generation are going to love it even more. You know, everyone keeps moving forward. But I would really struggle myself. I probably wouldn't be a DJ now if I had to break through now. I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't have the same ambition. I wouldn't. I'd be like, there's too much. You know, it's too. It seems too busy. There's too much going on. There's, you know, the Instagram thing, and everyone goes on about it and stuff. But I do kind of have this kind of like hope that talent breaks through most of the time, and you know, I don't know. Yeah, I feel like actually, I do feel like at the moment there's going to start to be a reset of going back. You know, going back to, you know, I watched this video the other day, for example, of Simon Dunmore playing on one deck, and it was in a record bar, and he basically was putting one record on. The crowd were going crazy. He then took the turntable, the record off, put another record on, and the crowd were going crazy. And there was some sort of like organicness and beauty to that. That made me feel that there is still people that are really, really loving music.
I think the difference is that it's being filmed.
Yeah.
So like, it's amazing that the reaches like that can reach somebody in China, right?
Yeah.
Like, and somebody in Japan can be like, oh, Simon did that, I can do that here. Well, they're probably doing it in Japan anyway. But I think it's more so the fact that like what kept it special, and I'm not saying it's special, it's not special today, because it is in its own right, but I think it's like there's no memories apart from what's in our head from those, like you playing in at 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. or supporting those tours. There's like, which pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it changes the party, but also we're also very fortunate that we're now touring the world more so than what it would have been back in the day.
I mean, I promise you that I can't remember, unless someone shows me a picture, unless or you remind me of a story. Yeah. Between 2000 and 2010. I really can't. I can't remember what summer I played this, what summer I did that, when, you know, there's a few little moments in my career between that period, because when someone shows me a photo or someone shows me a video, but I need to be reminded that I did it. Yeah.
Does that bother you?
Do you know, I wish I had more memories to look at. That's what I do miss. Yeah. You know, I really wish that I had more stuff that I could, like more tangible pictures, you know, something that I've got. And, You know, like I got nominated for a Grammy, and I don't have one single picture from the Grammys.
Wow. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like silly things like that where I don't have that. And not that it's more something to show my kids, I guess, or something just to remind me of what a great time that I had. You know, in the early part of my career, I used to keep the flyers.
Yeah.
And then it just got out of control. You know, it was like, and I don't even think they do flyers anymore. So
yeah, they don't, do they?
No.
I was actually designing a flyer for this summer summer tour that I'm doing. And I did like a print version on PSD, and I was like, this is never going to be used. Like, do they even print them?
No, I think Ibiza banned them. Ibiza banned them.
Did they really?
Yeah, because everyone was on the beach, weren't they, just handing out flyers, and then they'd leave the beach, and the whole beach would be like club promo. Yeah. You know, it was.
That was one of my first jobs.
I don't know if you remember it when you used to be handed a flyer, and it would be like, I don't know, like Cole Cox and this, and you know, especially at club class in Maidstone, you'd be like, wow, and you'd save that flyer and you'd take it home, and you'd be like, you know, it was tangible. It was. But I'm sure the younger generation have got their own version of it, either whether it be TikTok or Instagram or something.
Yeah, save some video or something. I think that's the thing is like I still, the first time I went to Ibiza, I was 16, so it was 2006, and I actually went to the Pasha shop in San Antonio and bought a flyer, and I think it was, I don't know who was playing. Who was the female DJ that was a resident?
Kevin or Sarah Main?
Sarah Main. It was Sarah Main. She's on it, and I think it's one of Pete's nights or something. But I still have that flyer today.
Do you remember the first time you played Ibiza?
Yeah, I was 16 that time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking so good.
It is though, isn't it? That feeling of getting on the plane as a kid and going to Ibiza and telling your mates and having all your mates on the plane with you coming to Ibiza, and it doesn't even matter if the gig was shit. It's just the simple fact that this is what I'm talking about. You've gone from like the hobby level to going to playing in Ibiza, and in your head you think you've made it. You know, you're like, I've made it. I'm playing
100%. Yeah,
it's all good, and then you realise actually, you know, this is just a small part of the whole process.
Yeah, because I think that was the thing for me is I was a resident out there for a while. When I was from like 18, I had my first residency out there, just in some Orange Corner in San Antonio, and then I moved to Kenya, and like you think you've made it when you get offered that job, and you're like, shit, I'm a Ibiza resident, and then you realize that actually means fuck all, and it's just the start of the journey, and you have to crack on and leave and go kind of spread your wings.
But I love that. I love the fact that. For me, I'm obsessed with football, and obviously I used to play a lot of football when I was younger, and I played around guys that have gone on to be professional footballers. And in my era, it was like a YTS scheme. So the players would come in and clean the boots. They would do this sort of thing. And I kind of feel like what me and you have done in that sense with Ibiza and learning. I started off like Esperadi, I think, and I built myself up. And it's kind of like, I always look at it as like a marathon, not a sprint. And feeling good that I've gone through that because I've learned the industry inside out now. You know, I know everything rather than I've just flown into it. I'm playing at Space, headlining, and knowing that I've got there through where we've been in the journey.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is like nowadays it's just like technology, right? So like from technology went slowly, and then all of a sudden it just went like skyrocketed. It's the same with this industry. It's kind of like you can start DJing, and then within a year, you could technically, if you have enough luck, you could technically be bigger than pretty much any DJ on the planet. And like, or you could do like 3-4 years, where like before it was like 10 years of like, you had to like put the work in and kind of just work out what the fuck you're doing. Yeah. And I don't think that's an issue. I think it's just the fact of this day and age.
We both know people that have had a video that's been posted and it's just gone viral, and then their careers have just gone through the roof.
Yeah.
But then it's the same argument, like talking about the whole kind of music thing at the moment now. And me used to be on Saved back in 2009 and 2010, and he literally used to come and watch me play at Panorama Bar and Bergheim with Ramp and the guys, and we used to do Saved versus kind of music back in 2010, 2011. Yeah. And everyone going, oh, they've just come out of nowhere. But they haven't. They've literally been doing this for such a long time. And whether you like it or you don't like the sound, it doesn't matter. That they've still put everything into the industry and got to where they are. What, 15 years later? I think that's a good enough, slog.
It's a good enough like education, right? It's a good enough like university until they get to to graduating. I think also what I really like what they've done is, they've kind of gone a little more commercial on their DJ sets to a certain extent because they kind of have to. They're playing in some massive crowds.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Once you jump ship from 500 people to 35,000 people in a park,
completely different.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, it's completely different. But they've stuck to what they've done. They've always been doing weird music for years. It's never like never been like on the money of what it is. They've just always done their own thing.
That's what I love, because they're very creative. They're very tight. They're very they don't let anyone get involved unless they really believe in them. So when we did the Kind Music versus Save nights, it was super nice. Rampa was doing with my brother, very tight with my brother. I worked a lot with Andre and me doing stuff on the label, and they're just shows you don't have to, you can do it in-house. They've done everything in-house. They've got their own agent in-house, and they've stuck to their guns. And I that's why I've got mad respect for them.
I think there's also a level of having everything in-house. I talk about this with a lot of mates, like the people that build something with like a crew, right? Like 2, 3, 4, 5 people. Look at like the Justice Boys, the Daft Punk Boys. Like, look what Pedro's done at Ed Banger. Yeah. Like, it's a really tight crew.
Yeah.
And they run everything. If you can do that, if you can grow the right people around you and build the right people around you, so you're all in it for the same thing, and everyone knows their role.
Yeah.
You're never going to fail.
No, I always use Music On as an example. Now, I'm super tight with Domenico and Marco and Tano and the guys, but they do, as a club night, how bands doing, like, that kind of thing where you got a label running it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they've stuck together for the last, 10 years. They've worked together. Everyone knows their role in the business. And I kind of look at that and I'm going, that's a great kind of business model and sort of collective of people that do those things. And you're right. I think it's all about having people on the same page and what journey they want to achieve.
And I think it's also not having one person at the top. I think you need somebody steering the ship, but I think it's, if everyone's equal, I think it's just healthier. Yeah. It's so hard to get that though. Like, I think that's everyone's dream, but to actually get that is so hard.
No, it's true. And I always talk about it like with management and stuff like that. Like, management's always, it's great to have and stuff like that, but you both have to be enthusiastic for the whole journey. You have to be on the same page, because if one of you kind of drops down, you can bring the other one up, but you can't constantly keep doing that. Do you know what I mean? You need to be working side by side. And I think that's a really important part for me, especially with management. Having, you always start off and it's always fun at the start, and then the business gets tougher, and then, you have a good time, you have a bad time, but as long as the journey and where you both want to get to is the same, you're fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also, it really comes down to relationship, right? Of like your communication of your relationship with that person. Because I think relationships break down 100%, but that's generally only down to communication.
Yeah, you're totally right. And the communication, like, this is just an example that I use. Back-to-backs, same as management, they start like friendships and communication stuff, but back-to-backs, like me and Carl, when we do our back-to-back stuff, it's not because of the music, it's because of the friendship and the communication that we have between us. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it might be like, and this is what I'm struggling with at the moment. A lot of promoters are trying to put me back to back with people I've never played with and never heard of. Do you know what I mean? But, and that's no disrespect to them, but if I want to do a back to back, we're going to elevate the show from me on my own or someone else on their own. And that only comes with communication and friendship. The same as when I did it with Joris Vaughan. And obviously with Carl, it's, our music styles are totally different, but it works.
I think that's it, isn't it? I think promoters can try and do something special for the fans, but then actually fuck it up, because you're 100%. I always say that. Like if I get asked to do it back to back, I'm like, I don't know this person. Like,
Yeah.
If I'm doing it back to back, I want it to be fun, because
100%.
otherwise it just looks boring.
It does, and it's, you mean, like, it is about the personality. And I'm not sure, but I've done some shockers, and I've walked
yeah,
and I'm like, shit. Like, you know, like, I've walked away, and probably they felt the same. You know what I mean? It's probably not just me; it's them as well. They're probably
they're saying exactly the same as we are.
Like, that is an awful DJ. That's like cutting me off, but it's it's down to, like. And I struggle with that. And I've actually said this year, I was talking to Milo and the guys, and I was just like, let's just keep it simple this year. Let's just play on our own unless something really, like, fun comes along.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. How long have you been at 360?
Wow. Well, I've obviously known Mark a long time.
Yeah.
Since day one, since he was working at God's Kitchen. So we've got a great relationship. But I'd say I've been there 11 years.
Were they your only managers, or have you had management before?
No, it's a long and complicated story before that.
Talk to me about it.
Yeah. The whole thing and bore people watching it. But again, was working with a company called Club Class. Things kind of tailed off at the end, didn't seem to work out. There was more of kind of an EDM culture that was coming into the company. And my sound wasn't doing that great at the time. And then a young intern by the name of Milo Mitchum came in. He was my tour manager to start with. Became really, really good friends. He kind of got, like, fed up one day and decided he wanted to leave. I sort of persuaded him. We tried to say, let's try and salvage this relationship. It didn't seem to work out. You know, they both had different opinions of where it needed to go. And he left, went on his own for a bit, and then obviously joined Mark and 360. So, it's been a great journey. It's been great working back with Mark and Macca and the team and stuff. And, you know, especially Paul McRae, who works at 360, you know, we're like childhood friends, you know what I mean? So and me and Mark have known each other. I've known Mark since the God Kitchen days, before he was obviously took on an amazing career with Calvin and everything else he was doing. So it feels right, and it feels like the perfect spot for me.
I love that. As a company, what they've done is pretty special.
Yeah.
Really special.
They're great. And like I said, I don't even think about the company. I just think about the personal level. You know what I mean? Like, none of them are in my phone as Mark 360 or Milo 360. They're just in as their names. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the way I look at it. It's like I was explaining to you, there's a really good documentary, and it's called Supermensch. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so good. It's fucking amazing.
And me and Milo, it's like our go-to kind of. And if anyone's not seen it, you've got to watch Supermensch. And it's just showing you the relationship between him and Alice Cooper by the end of it. You know, they've been working together since day one, and they've got their, you know, they know what their role is in the relationship, and they've got each other's back. And, you know, I kind of feel like that. It's all about personalities and relationships in this industry. And once that kind of the bubble wears off, then you have to have a strong sort of conversation and go, is it worth carrying on the journey together?
I think it's also like, as artists, I don't know about you, but you mentioned just a minute ago, like, your sound wasn't doing so well back then, in a sense of when the industry went into the EDM period.
Yeah.
I think it's like, it's hard as an artist sometimes. Like, you're not always going to be the hot new thing. You're not always going to be the artist that every promoter wants to book. And I think when you go into that period, it's like really hard on all relationships, like personal and business wise. You've been doing this for God knows how many years. Like, how do you must have been through that multiple times. Like, how have you kind of come through that?
I tell this to a lot of up and coming DJs. You know, you can't worry. You can't overthink. You know, you can't compare yourself to everyone else. I remember I came off the back of a 1+1 tour in 2007, James Ibiza. We were touring the world, smashing it. 2008, we obviously separated. We did our solo projects. My career just went tanked, absolutely tanked. Main reason, the minimal scene came in.
Yeah.
The minimal scene, just like, unless you were, the UK had it so good for so many years, and then the Germans and the Italians and the Spanish kind of overtook at that point. The DJs, you had the minor stuff, you had like Marco and his team, and no one gave a shit about house music at the time in that period. You look at any lineup, and then there was also that kind of like electro T. Schwartz kind of sound as well that was coming through, very German again. I honestly, at one point, thought, fuck, I've got to change. I've got to do something else. And then I thought, you know what? I've loved what I've played. I've always kind of made like house music in some sort of variety, whether it's a little bit deeper or a little bit tougher. I've always stuck to my guns. And I saw so many people jump ship from house to EDM that crashed and burned.
Yeah.
Because once you go that way, you can never go back the other way. You can never come back. It's so, I just stuck to my guns. Sucked it up, downgraded my lifestyle, and just got on with it, But yeah, I can remember that. Do you know what? The closest I felt to that time was COVID. That was
really,
yeah. That's how I felt. I felt like, some people had a great COVID, some people didn't. I felt that, I kind of felt it was bad timing. I had a lot of projects going on. I had the second season of Dance or Die ready to go at Ushuaia. Obviously, that got cancelled, and then we never went back to do it. And I just felt very insecure and very, very lonely at the time. And 2008 was a big wake up call for me. And then following 12, 13 years, it was great. I just carried on playing and really enjoyed it. And then COVID was like a humbling reminder of what happened back then. And yeah, but listen, I always think like, dance music wasn't designed as a business.
No.
Dance music was designed as, like I say, a hobby and an industry where, I used to, like, just for example, you used to earn 50 quid a week in a record shop, but you spend 100 quid on records a week. You were determined to play good music and want to listen to good music. That's why I always think it's healthy for new DJs to break through our scene, because you might have had your moment in 2006 or 7, and then it's someone else's moment. You can't keep looking and going, why are they so big? Why?
Yeah.
Because you're not interesting anymore. People have spoken about you for the last 10 years. Do you know what I mean? There needs to be something fresh. There needs to be something new.
No, I totally agree.
When you come to terms with it, you can just enjoy your career.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I have always said there's space for everybody. Like, you can still sell a shit ton of tickets, even if you're not the hottest thing in the world, right? Like, you can still, but yeah, if you're not selling out a stadium, it doesn't mean you're doing shit.
No, you just have to find your lane and just be happy with it. I've found my lane, and I'm just, I found my team, I found everything that I do, and I enjoy, like you occasionally see something, oh, I really love to play that. And then you're like, well, don't think about it. They ring you up or they email you if they want you to play. It's down to them. It's not your choice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. At what point did you get to that level? Was that like COVID or?
I got to the point, 2008, I got to around 2010 and I said, with Saved, I started, obviously the Save Records has been going, but I really took it seriously around 2010. And I just said, look, I'm just going to immerse myself, find good music, play music. And if people want to be interested, let them be. You can't force people to want to book you. You can't force people to, at the start, you need a leg up, you need a bit of help, you need support. And that's where I had a great team, like with Pete, Ali and Sharam, and even Fergie back in the day. There's
Legend.
Great supporters that helped me out. And that's what you can expect. That's it. That's all you need. And then after it's your journey, and you've got to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah. But like going to today, right? Like you run it like a business. Like I know you're not just sat there twiddling your thumbs waiting for it to happen.
No.
So what does that, from 2005 to now, what's different in your life of how you run your business?
I think paying attention to the detail more. Really do. Like with Saved, I was signing stuff, handing over to the distributor, put it out. Now I'm like having twice a week calls with people, trying to search out how we can do publishing deals in certain areas, neighboring rights, things that I didn't have a fucking clue about when I was younger, And that's just learning through age. but with the calendar and the gigs and stuff, I don't, it's weird. I don't, you can, my agent might have different things, but I never like to go to my agent, can we do this? Can we do that? It's always a case of like, we're happy with what comes in. We're grateful of what comes in.
Yeah.
And I think after COVID, like I said, a humbling lifestyle made it more easier to understand and maintain, than just trying to keep fighting and trying to do more and do more and do more. And you know what? I don't care. I'll get on a plane and fly anywhere as long as someone wants me to play for them, and really enjoy it. It has to be obviously the right lineup and the right show. But, I'm not one of these guys that's like, no, all the time. I'm just enjoying it, mate. And, I'm 45 now, and I'm still, I probably had one of the best, most enjoyable years of my life last year.
Why is that?
Balance of family, balance of work, just enjoying it, I think, Will, the older you get, the more content you are with things. Before it was always like, I want to be at the top of the flyer. I want a Mix and Mag cover. I want this. Now I'm like, once you remove that from your brain, mate, or you still have goals and you still have ambitions, and, you still want to play, with your peers, and you still want to do stuff like that. But you have that mentality in your 20s or your early 30s, but you need to let go of it. And I feel that's one of the things that people really struggle with today. They really are looking at too much information. We go back to that situation where they're looking at what everyone else is doing, and their brain is just exploding, and and they're forgetting about who they are and what they're doing.
Yeah, it's so hard because mate, I'm nowhere near there. Like I'm nowhere near content with where I'm at in my career. But it sounds amazing where you're at. Like, genuinely.
I'm not even gloating, mate. It's more the simple fact of just a switch went off, and it's now the case of just like, we sit down, we talk to the team, we plan out what we're doing, and we plan out what happens, and if we can reach at least 30% of them goals every year, we're happy. Because you still have to have goals. You still have to have any industry or any job. You still want to have goals, and you still want to get to the same things. And I'm just like I'm saying, content. And I think the reason probably as well, Will, that you're not in that place is I think that people really do put a lot of pressure on themselves and really feel that they should be doing better than what they are. But then there's a person below you, Will, or above, that's looking in a different direction, going, oh, he's got a great career, he's got an amazing podcast, he's an amazing producer, he travels the world, you know what I mean? And then we're like, oh, right, okay. And then I have the same thing, we forget, how much we've achieved because we don't really take a step back and look at ourselves.
100%. Do you think we should, though?
I think you should be proud of what you do, 100%. Yeah. I think you should take a step back and go, it's not just about getting on airplanes, making music, this and that, and just going, you know what? Fuck it. Do you know what I mean? If I told you at like 15, you would have records in the top 10 of Beatport and produce for so many different people and travel the world, you'd be like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And that'd be your 15, 16-year-old self. Now you'd be like, oh, okay, that's all right. You know what I mean?
It's every day, right?
It's every, and and I don't want to go into it too much because it's because it creates like, there's a whole sort of stream of like, people with the mindfulness and and things like that. But I just think it's about removing yourself and having your life and then having the industry life. It's like having the balance between both.
Yeah, that is really hard. It's one thing I think a lot of people struggle in this industry. Because I think it's going back to from day one of what you said of this is like, you start this as your hobby, and as a hobby, you're like, all you want to do is like come home from school and play records. Yeah. Like that's all you want to do, right? Like
that feeling, how good it was.
Oh mate, like
it was so good.
Like it's literally the best feeling in the world. Like I would literally like bring none of my mates liked house or techno when like I grew up in the Southwest, that everyone likes fucking drum and bass, which I love now, but I could never get my friends to listen to house and techno, and I'd just keep playing it to them, and they were like, this is shit, Will. Like I used to, this place where it's next door to my parents, this place used to be like a old cow shed.
Oh, really?
And like in this room, I used to throw parties like at the end of school, and like I'd just be playing house and techno, and all my mates would be like, mate, play some drum and bass. But like those are that feeling of excitement was so special.
I used to play it on the kitchen table with my parents and my brother in front of me on a belt drive Technics table and an amplifier one where it just had the turn and a little made to fade mixer, and it was something about it. It was like, it was just great. It was like there was no bells and whistles. It was just pure honest love for playing records, wasn't it? Like, I didn't even have the right equipment.
No.
And it was, and I do think back, and I did find a lot of pictures the other day of, I remember playing like house parties on New Year's Eve, and no one was standing in front of, no one was dancing. It was just me. And, you know, I used to want to be like Sasha, and when I managed to find the headphones that he used and ordered them from San Francisco, and, you know, I used to like go and watch Laurent Garnier live and write all the records down and then go and buy them. And just the only audience I had was probably my parents and a few friends.
Yeah. So good. Those are the best times. Do you think that still happens now though?
I hope so. I mean, I haven't been to an after party in a while, but
when did that stop?
I mean, we pick and choose our battles, and we really but I'm sure there's people that have like them all in one units from Pioneer that they put on the table, and they plug the USB in, and, you know, there's no more like your mates coming around with decks and having to set up, and it takes like 2 minutes to set up a system. Yeah,
there's no like hums and buzzes that are like, you're like, who hasn't grounded the decks today?
Yeah, no, it was. It's good that you reminded me of that period, mate. It was a really, really special period for me at that time.
No, and I think that's with what you say, and like it's very easy to forget all of that, because it sounds really arrogant, but like playing a DJ show is like, you can do it with your eyes closed now, right? And that's not because saying it's DJing is easy. It's just purely because we've done it for God knows how many years every weekend.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. I don't know about you, but I get asked like, do you get nervous still? And I'm like, I get just
so nervous.
Do you?
Really, really nervous.
Really?
It's horrible, mate. It's so horrible. But I'm glad I get nervous because I care. Like, I get nervous more in smaller environments.
Yeah.
Not because I'm anxious or I'm nothing like that. I just get, because when you're playing at a festival and you know this, it's pretty fucking hard to clear a room.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty hard, you know, but you still love what you're doing. But when you're in a smaller club, everything counts. I remember playing Panorama Bar for the first time. I mean, I didn't want to leave the hotel room until the last possible minute. I didn't want to see my mates. I was like growing up. I was like, you know, it's like, this was like the pinnacle of German clubbing, and, you know, everyone just staring at you, and it's like, fuck.
Yeah. I don't get nervous at all. And it kind of worries me. Like I
don't show it, but inside I'm crying.
Really? When does that stop? Does it ever stop throughout the set?
Two records in.
Yeah.
2 records in, just to get the vibe, just to get the, you know, it's a culmination of things, getting into the booth, setting up, you know, seeing people coming up to you, and then you're just like, right, I need to get in the zone. But there's nothing better than it though, mate. There's nothing better than playing records for 2 hours. I love it.
Yeah. When was the last time you actually played vinyls?
I wouldn't know, you know. I've got a load of vinyl. Like we've just moved house, and I've just got it all in storage. And I took it out and started going through it the other day. And I just like, you know, like you look at the covers and you're like, wow, I remember this when I used to play this. And, you know, I haven't for a while, you know. I think 2015, me and my brother were playing in Washington, DC, and we went to an after party, and they had like a Serato set up. So I was kind of playing on that. So kind of the same thing, but
I've literally just got a set up here. I like sold my place in Detroit and shipped over everything from there. And it's like the first time I've had like decks like properly set up anywhere. So yeah, but it's more so, I'm also just listening to stuff on it rather than mix. Like getting like an Aretha Franklin vinyl and just like chucking it on whilst cooking dinner. It's the best feeling.
Yeah.
It's different to Spotify. It's very different.
It is, and it's like you said, it's tangible, it's organic, and it's, for me, it's like, you know, I go through the records, and I'm like, oh, I remember when I played that like in New York, and I remember when I did this, and you know, like, I've got that reminds me of certain things, you know. But yeah, I've got to get my setup done here soon.
I think there used to be like, I don't know if it is so much now, but I think there used to be specific records because there was less being released and there was more of an ability of like the summer hit. Can you remember the Ibiza record of the summer, right? Yeah. And I think there was more of ability of like memories linked to music in our careers. Where like, oh, I remember playing this at this, like, you know, when you play that record for the first time and it goes off and you're like, oh, that memory, or something crazy is going on the dance floor and that record's playing at the time and you'll always have that memory. It's like that smell, that there's like the sense that, I don't know if that happens so much now.
I genuinely think that's an age thing, mate. I genuinely think that's a youth thing, because that's the beauty of being youthful. And I always say this to like,
true, actually.
Enjoy your youth. Enjoy them moments. Just go do everything you possibly can, because you won't appreciate those memories when you get older.
Yeah.
You know, because like you said, it's like, I could play the same record now. You remember that, but I guarantee in the last 3 or 4 years, you haven't gone to a club and gone, oh, that was a really special moment that someone dropped that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're in a totally different mind frame than what you were back then. And
true.
And it's, but what I loved about vinyl is you'd have 100 records. That was it. Now on Tractor, I've got 10,000 records.
Yeah.
So I'm overthinking, I'm overcompensating. And for some reason, those 100 records worked every time.
Yeah.
You know, you'd probably change out like 5 or 10 a week, maybe, I don't know. But I think because there was no videoing, there was no posting, you're like, oh shit, I can't play that record again, or I played that record too many times. It didn't matter back then.
Well, sets weren't being recorded, so they weren't going on the internet. So that doesn't mean that like somebody that's coming to see you this week, I'm not saying that you play the same set over and over again, but it's going to be pretty similar. Whereas now, like, a set gets recorded, well, you can't play that set again, because pretty much everybody that's going to come and see you again has seen that set already. So it's like,
I'm very, very particular about releasing sets. Because it's like, you know.
Let's talk about Saved. I'm really, really intrigued of how you've kind of built this label. 2005?
2005, Andy Chatterley and myself started it. So Andy was the guy that got me into producing. He was a great producer. We recorded under Skylark and Buick Project. And we didn't really have anywhere to release records. So we were like, fuck it, let's start a label. Let's start a label. And I remember him having this Atari with a floppy disk. And obviously we finished the record, the floppy disk came out, and we were like, right, okay. And I was like, that's what our label was going to be called, Saved. It was like, you know, one of them like mad moments. And you're like, until you see the Saved. We haven't changed the artwork once in the last 20 years. And then we were releasing our stuff as Buick Project and as Skylark and stuff like that. And then more people started sending us demos, like Paul Wolford, Suban, I can't, you know, Andrea Leva, people like that, and me. And we just started releasing like up and coming music. And it was just about, the whole basis of the label was, if I would play it, I'll sign it. It wasn't one of them things like, that's a great record, that'd do really well, we'll sign it. No. It's a case of if I would play it or not. Yeah. About 2007, I think, or 2008, Andy decided to go into a pop career. He married a lady. It was just after the Grammys, actually. He married Narina Paley, who was a Brit Award, Brit nominee singer. So he went to produce with her. He did a bunch of stuff with Kylie as well. So we didn't fall out. We just parted directions at different points. But I do owe a lot of credit to Andy. And then, I think it's our 20th anniversary this year.
That's mad. Do you love releasing records on it, or do you love signing records? Like, do you feel like a label boss, if that makes sense, in a sense of like?
I struggled at the start. That's how I struggled, because I was signing these great records, and all I wanted to do was have a platform for myself and these artists to release on. And then we started doing Save Nights. Yeah. And everyone who either did a remix or signed to the label expected to be on these nights.
Yeah.
So it caused me this huge headache of like, I obviously did the nights, but I wasn't the guy that was paying for the talent and the promoter and stuff like that. We had someone else, and I'd be like, oh, this is who we have on the roster. Yeah, we can add a couple, but we can't add everyone. And then we want to get another name. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Add someone else to the lineups. So then I had to make a conscious decision about 2010 that when I signed any of the artists, I'm like, look, please don't expect to play on the save nights, because it's not, we're not signing it for that. We're signing it for your music.
Yeah.
Where there's an opportunity, we'll put you on and stuff. But please, I don't want to be held accountable for, oh, he signed that, but he never plays. I just didn't want to go down that whole rabbit hole.
Totally.
But yeah, I at that moment, like now that Saved has come back, we had a 2-year break. It came back, and
why did you have a break?
Yeah, it's kind of it's a long story and something that I'm not allowed to go into.
Yeah,
yeah, we took a break. A few legal issues with certain situations, and now everyone's happy. Everyone's back to normal, and now we're releasing through Defected.
Oh, sick!
Which is great. I'm still obviously still 100% my label and still me running the show. But I decided that when I was going to come back, I would just release my music.
Yeah.
At least for the first year or 2 years, because it gave me full control again, and actually spending the time and the effort, like I was saying, with the guys there. And by the way, they've got a great team of people that we sit with on calls every week, working out like strategies and release dates and, remix ideas. And, now we're working towards the end of the year for the anniversary, 20th anniversary of Saved and stuff. So yeah, I found love in the label again. Obviously that period I kind of like lost, hope with the label, and then now it's back. I'm excited again, like rejuvenated, mate.
No, I love that, because Saved has been such an integral part of house music over the years. It's like I was listening to some of the stuff today. I was on a run and I was listening to some of your music as well, and I was just like, you've been 20 years in releasing house music is something that you've given so much to the industry without even realizing. Like the amount of music that you've blessed, either your music or other people's music, that you've released to the world. And I don't think there's record labels that start now have the same mentality of what you guys have always done. I think there's like the grandfathered record labels of our industry that kind of have that legacy kind of act, but are still out there pushing amazing music. You guys have created that. Like, how does that feel?
I've never looked at it like that, mate. So it's quite a, like, wow. But I've looked at it the case that it's the same mentality with anything. You just want to, when you start something, you want to try and at least have like a long-term strategy with it and a long-term idea of where you're going. It's like with Saved, it's kind of like I wanted to create the label and the icon and with the artwork to last the time, last like, a bit like, I'm not saying like Coca-Cola, but Coca-Cola has been the same for the last, God knows, 100 years. And where so many people have gone, oh, you need to change it up. You need to do something different. I was like, no, look at Underground Resistance. It's just the same logo. And it's like, and it works. And fashions come and go. And I kind of had that with the music. I kind of like, I wanted to sign really, really exciting music that I loved. So, and that's all I did, mate. I didn't have any more of a plan of action from that. And I just released it and we managed to stay afloat this amount of time. And do you know what's great? We're still kind of relevant, I think, as well, which is nice. We've
100%.
Which is like you're saying, you've got these like real legacy kind of labels as well that are still going because they've got our heroes on there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But we're still putting out music that people seem to connect with, and that's really, really nice to see.
Does anyone ask nowadays what the artwork's about?
You're the first person that's ever asked it.
Really?
Well, we're talking the first person I've ever really kind of told about it, to be honest.
Yeah. Do you get like younger people go, what the hell is that?
No, I don't know. But do you know what I do get now? I get so many young kids that I go to shows and they've decided to go down the rabbit hole of delving through the whole back catalogue of Saved.
I love that.
And pulling out records that I can't even remember. Like early Dennis Cruz records on Saved and, Mendo records and I'm like, the whole Chia Pet Westworld, Skylark remixes, things like that. And I'm just like, wow.
Did you release Chia Pet Westworld?
Yeah.
No fucking way.
Well, it's on Yoshi Toshi, and then my remix came out on Saved.
Oh, because I did a remix of that years ago.
Yeah.
And, wow.
Yeah. And you know what I mean? It's like, wow, these kids really are into music. They are, because they wouldn't be going down that far down the list to find these records. And it's nice to hear, especially the people that are playing before me. They're pulling out, they're kind of like going, I wonder if he knows what it is. And they're kind of trying, I don't know if they're trying to fuck me over, if they're like,
how often?
We're 280 releases in. So
that's good going, man. Yeah. That's really good going.
Mm.
Do you run it like a business?
Not that part. No, not really.
Yeah.
No. Just, I whatever we make, we put back into the label.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never, my music and obviously that side of it in publishing and that's obviously run like a business, but the label itself is self-sufficient.
Yeah. And that's good.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that because what did someone say to me once? Your record label is just the equivalent of an expensive business card. I'm like,
it is.
Yeah. And you know how much it is to, and going through since we've moved, the amount of backstock of vinyl that we've got on Saved.
Yeah.
I've had to take back off the distributor because we didn't sell it.
Your garage full up.
But saying that, we've got I was talking to Andre about this. We've got so much of the And Me and Rampa stuff still Saved on vinyl that you can't actually find now. So yeah,
that's great though. I think I generally think we've been doing on my label, but also for the album, we've been doing vinyl and press 300 and majority of the time, you might be left with 50 or you might sell out, but there's something so nice about people buying tangible music again. And I think it's coming back.
I'm gonna do you a package of all the Saved releases.
Mate, please do.
But I went through an obsession and Milo fucking hated me for this. I wanted every single vinyl to be a different color.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Even if we had white, I'd have to have white with purple through it, or like yellow with blue through it, and yellow. So none of them could be the same. So
that's important. I think that's more for the fans, right? As well, it's like
people are loving it. Just the whole idea of, everyone keeps telling me the vinyl sales are back up and things like that, but I haven't really done too much research into it. Whether we need to come back in that capacity, I don't know.
I think what we did with my label is we did a yearly vinyl, and it kind of made it a little bit more special. That each year we did a vinyl with the top 10 records, and it wasn't the top 10 of what sold the best. It's what my top 10 of favorite. Yeah. And we just did that on we did that the first 3-4 years of running the label. And it kind of is that thing of you're not constantly asking people to buy, but at the end of each year, you're asking people to buy something that's a collectible, because we're not going to run anymore again. And you just got to hope that there's some records on there that people want, because then they'll buy it. But yeah, it's great.
Yeah. The only thing I found recently with the vinyl stuff is when I looked into it was the lead time to produce.
Yeah. It's quicker now. It's way quicker now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And you can do if you want to do even smaller runs, there's dub spots where you can do 50, and it's it's really, really easy to.
I remember in the early days of my career, I used to go to Music House and I used to have the DATs, and I used to go and get acetates cut, and there'd be all the drum and bass boys in the queue with me. There'd be Sasha, Lee Burridge, and people like that. And we used to get all our acetates cut back then. And I found a few of them the other day, and they still play. They still sound okay, because there was always a limit. I think 50, 60 times that you could play it before they they were done.
Yeah, pretty much. There's a guy called Dr. Dubplate from Bristol. I've just had him on the podcast, and he's started doing that now. He's got this label called EC2A. His dad used to own Plastic People in London.
Oh wow!
And he's started this whole like dub era again, where he's selling like 50 dub plates, or he's selling like a USB stick with like records that you can't buy online, and just making this kind of like hysteria around music again. And it's so nice to see like real communities like of young kids. This isn't old dudes like saying, oh, I love the vinyl days, I'll bring it back. It's like young kids like really buying into this whole kind of like culture, which is really exciting.
I mean, it was the same with me, like having a DAT. And I remember the first time I got sent the Stardust DAT, you know, and I went and got it cut. And I was one of the only people in like the UK that had this like, you know, Stardust record, which was obviously went on to be huge. But
yeah,
it was so nice to have, you know, that for about a year that no one had. Because back then it was, you know, you couldn't just upload it. You know, you couldn't just send it like that. It was like, you know, we used to go scouring to massive records in Oxford, down to a place in Bournemouth. And it was, you know, they used to drop like, you know, a few dub plates in all these stores and things like that just to test the water.
Love that.
It's like you were just saying that what's happening now with the guy in Bristol.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I think that's also the way to build records again now. I think it's like, how do you create hype around something? I think it is now going back to how it used to be. The more and more people I talk to now of like in the label scene, in working records, in management, it's like, well, no, you need to work the record on the underground for a longer time. You need 100%. To get, and which is interesting because I think there was a period where that stopped.
No, and I feel like Set Me Free when it came back on Saved, I was playing it for 2 years and I was giving it out to everyone to play, and then it just popped, you know. And I noticed that when you don't leave it out there long enough for people to listen and recognize what things are, it's very hard to put a record up on Beatport when there's like 4,000 releases on the same day.
Yeah.
Stand out. But I mean, you know, you just completed an album, haven't you? You just finished an album and stuff. Did you feel any more connection with putting music out by having the album out than you were with singles, or did you feel like it was
I thought I would have.
Yeah.
I think there was like a big conversation around it, right, online, and we did like the live tour with it, and it was definitely something for like the super fans, if that makes sense without sounding wanky.
Yeah.
But the way albums are listened to now, I think it's more so it's going to take time for people to discover it, and I can't force it down people's faces all the time, and they will discover it for whenever it's there. The thing I like about having an album is that it's there now. It's never going away. Whereas like I find singles go away in a sense of your next single comes out, like, okay, 10 singles down the line, unless it was an absolute massive hit, people have forgotten about that record. Whereas
so you kind of did it, you approached it more from an artistic point of view than really anything, didn't you?
It was purely for me, realistically.
No, I feel the same when I did My Heart, and it kind of took me 10 years. I kind of was like, wow, I finished this project, it's amazing. And went and did the live show thing like you. I think I lasted 2 shows. I said to Milo, I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is ridiculous. This is not me. I can't control where the music's going. It's all about syncing the lights up. It's like, you know, playing the album but the only thing I came out of it saying to myself was, it's there. It can't go anywhere. People have got it now.
You did a record with Damon Albarn on there.
Yeah, Damon Albarn. I worked with, I think, Agoria. I worked with some Matthew Deere. Fucking hell, I worked with some ridiculous producers on this album.
Jamie Principle as well.
No, it was unbelievable, but it was too much information for people to consume in one go. You know, it was very difficult, and I felt it was at that point. I think it was 2018. It was very fast paced. It was singles, and you know,
I still want to do it. I'm still wanting to go down that route. I'm writing album 2 at the moment, but how I release it is going to be very different. It's literally good in how I want to release it. It's like going to be work on a few records for however long it takes, in a sense of make the records do what they need to do, and then just have the album there whenever those records are doing what they need to be doing, and then just put it together. Because I think like what I have learned, that like having a set album release date, we don't need a release date nowadays. Like we can release a fucking album tomorrow, right? So it's like having a set day, it kind of limited us on what we could do on the records. But it's definitely interesting. Last time I saw you in the studio, you were kind of in the process of potentially doing something. Have you been that off?
I went down that lane, and I stopped myself after the third demo. I said to you, didn't I? I said to you, I was like, this is just out of control. I'm like, my brain is like, there's certain people like yourself that can sit there and, you know, like I said, the first album took 10 years, and it was more the case. And I genuinely believe the artists that I got on there were like people that I respected, but they were kind of like a shield for me.
Yeah.
You know, like I felt like if I had these artists on the label, like Damon Albarn, fucking Blur and Gorillaz on there, do you know what I mean? It's kind of, this is going to work. Do you know what I mean? Or, you know, or Matthew Deere, who's one of my absolute heroes in the production world. But this time I was kind of, I'm going to do this on my, and I don't think it's the right time for me at the moment. I gave up, mate.
I don't blame you. Don't blame me. Mate, I've loved this conversation. Thank you so much for coming on, dude. I really appreciate it. How can people get involved with, one thing I haven't done. I'm supposed to be doing quick fire questions at the end.
Yeah.
For socials. Fucking socials. I guess the one thing that I generally would love for people, you've achieved a lot over the years, and I know it's the most bait question. There's 2 questions. First one is, what's one piece of advice that you would like to give everybody?
I mean, it sounds so fucking cliche, but stay humble and just honestly, the way you have to behave as a human with promoters. This is an ecosystem, remember, so everyone's got to win, you know, and I feel that if you can stay in your lane and stay humble, you will last a lot longer than people that don't. You know, I feel that, you know, it's like I say, it sounds cliche, but it's honestly the God's truth. You know, for me, it's literally staying humble. And my biggest mentor and person that I look to, and I always compare and tell people to look at and try and compare themselves, is Carl Cox. Now, probably one of the biggest DJs in the world, you know, for the last 30 years. And I don't know if you've met him. He's exactly the fucking same person from the day that I met him.
Mm.
You know, he will sit and talk to people and be happy, ask them questions, not just be like, you know, it's super nice. And I think that's one of the things that I've tried to maintain in my career.
Love that, man. Love that. Dude, thanks so much for coming on. I'm sure I'll see you very soon.
Super interesting. Let's try not to keep it too long. Let's see if one of us gets our album done first.
Nice one, mate. Stay on. I'm going to lock up.
See you, mate.
And that's a wrap. Big love to Nic for coming on. Really appreciate it. Thanks for listening. Subscribe. Give us a review. Till next time.